Just a heads up, as I'm writing this, I just woke up from a really crappy nap. This and chapter 1 at least, everything else is written at other times, so they should be fine. And I'm sick while recording this, if you can't tell by my voice. Who knows how effectively I'm going to get my point across here because of those things, but today I'm discussing arguably the most popular Danganronpa fan game, Project Eden's Garden. I was getting a little tired of Danganronpa, and this game is a similar enough structure to where I can go pretty in depth. Of course, only the prologue exists, so a chunk of the content presented will be not just analysis, but speculation as well. Consider it like the analysis justifies the speculation, alright? However, of course, I'm always covering something specific. Today I'm covering the roles of Damon Maitsu and Wolfgang Akire, whether it's their dynamic, subversion, how they'll change throughout the game, or their themes. I'll be covering them. I've seen my fair share of Eden's Garden analysis and commentary videos, so I'll try and bring something new to the table. Without further ado, let's begin. Oh, and spoilers for the Danganronpa games and Eden's Garden. We're talking about Subversion. Like and subscribe. I think Wolfgang is the protagonist and Damon is the antagonist. Weird, huh? I know. I mean, Damon is literally the protagonist, and well, Wolfgang, it was kinda like his equal from his perspective. Though, hear me out. I'll explain Damon's character first. Something that's brought up occasionally in places like the YouTube comments of different playthroughs is the position that the characters are in during Class Trial 0, or the first true class trial. It's a mainstay of the series to have the protagonist be on the opposite side to their first victim, or Monokuma, during the class trials, though in Trigger Happy Havoc, Sayaka is next to Makoto and Junko is at the end. Should have predicted Kaede's death sooner. I mean, she wasn't on the opposite side, but Shuichi was. Also, just like how Junko was at the other end in Trigger Happy Havoc, Samugi is right next to Rantaro, so right next to the same position. Anyway, back to Eden's Garden. As I said, been done to death, but Wolfgang is in the protagonist position, and interestingly enough, Damon is in the position of the Chapter 1 victim, or in other situations, the mastermind. I don't believe he is the mastermind, but even the antagonist of a Danganronpa game is in the closer half of students, which Damon is at the peak of the middle of. Even after Wolfgang has his Class Trial 0 breakdown, the students trust him. When Damon says one condescending thing post-trial, he's a public enemy number 1. At least he thinks so. I've watched the scene a few times, and it feels like the other Ultimates are only annoyed at him rather than fully against the guy. This is in his mind, which reminds me of another Danganronpa character, that being Kokichi. Of course, it depends on what opinion you have on the guy, but to me, Kokichi's main theme is suspicion, hence why he lies. This is confirmed with the whiteboard in his room, considering Shuichi is a trustworthy partner, and Damon doesn't trust the other students either after Class Trial 0, or even before that to an extent. As helpful as he is to be able to serve a role as a protagonist, if he does, he's going to need to redeem himself. Or this will be a very different Danganronpa game. Fan game, I meant. I do think it's possible it'll remain this way for a chapter or two, but cutting Damon's human relationships off will most likely hinder the story than serve it. So, what do I think? Well, one of two possibilities. Either he'll be on good terms with the other Ultimates, though in his mind he'll always be anxious and uneasy. This could lead to some form of Wolfgang-style breakdown, most likely mid-game or end-game. On the other side of things, he could slowly redeem himself, and even see his mindset change. Wolfgang falls insanely deep into why, but this is in a section of the video. Damon feels incredibly similar to Hajime Hinata, who feels left out, though even he becomes loved by his classmates. Eden's Garden has the same united feeling as Goodbye Despair, but you're in Nagito's shoes now. You're with Toko this time. So the despair you, as the antagonist, might feel will grow even stronger as you realize how unhappy you are, even when surrounded by such positive people. I feel like his redemption, if he has one, will begin with the first murder. His whole point of post-trial is that someone could kill someone else. And if that does happen, then of course, what is there to be mad about when it comes to Damon? Most likely his comments on how most of the Ultimates have more reason to kill than normal people. When met with the motive of his first killer, this could either change or amplify his views on his peers, and their views on him as well. I do think Damon will be humbled pretty hard in the early game, since Ultimates have no power in the confine of Tozu's killing game, therefore he's equal to others in said game. It's also very clear that Wolfgang and Damon's talents are meant to seem incredibly useful in class trials, and I think that'll go somewhere. Eva's talent can also be useful, though in a large variety of ways. Funny how the three most central characters so far have that in common, huh? Finally, Damon's animal is quite literally, even in the Garden of Eden, a representation of evil, poison, and a lot of similar stuff. This just boosts my idea of him being an antagonist, though snakes can also mean fertility and rebirth, which could be him redeeming himself later on. Well, I think I've covered Damon. Let's move to every Byakuya simp's favourite side piece, Wolfgang. Wolfgang is the ultimate lawyer, and is effectively painted as perfect right out of the gate. In fact, for somebody so seemingly mature, his class trial zero moment comes off as extremely immature, though admirable. Anyway, this guy, as stated, sits where the protagonist of each Danganronpa game sits. Well, stands, but yeah. He also gives heavy protagonist vibes, as everybody loves the guy after the first trial despite his hiccup. He's the one that brings everyone back up to their feet despite their crushing reality, and he makes everything better for everybody, besides Eva and Damon. Anyway, the rest of the class is happy. He is kinda like the ultimate imposter, or Kaito, but with that protagonist flair. He begins resisting Tozu right off the bat, and while Damon might only have Eva, Wolfgang has everyone, and everyone has him. However, I think that moment he had in the class trial is going to be the seed for something bigger. His passion will be his downfall. It was already an obstacle to everybody when it happened, so I don't think it's a stretch to assume the same thing will grow in severity. I think while Damon begins to redeem himself, Wolfgang will fall from grace. This is my main point of the video, but before that, let me detail this some. The sheep pin paired with his name, as overanalyzed as it already is, could represent a herd of sheep, though with Wolfgang as the leader of the pack. Though, as Eva suggests, Wolfgang could be leading them on into despair. I don't think this is planned by him though, and I think it's more foreshadowing than anything. I do truly believe Wolfgang is a good guy, though the killing game is designed to break people, and I truly think this could happen with him. Also, green and purple are almost opposite colours. Odd, huh? They aren't exactly completely different, but I think the existing difference is notable enough. Paired with how the fact they aren't polar opposites could represent that Wolfgang and Damon have similarities neither of them may mention for one reason or another. They might not acknowledge it till later, really. Each murder, Wolfgang's passion will overcome him, until, for one reason or another, most likely case 3 or 4, he will break. I feel like this breaking will both cause the class to go into despair and possibly make Damon reconsider his previous ideologies. Once again, fertility and rebirth. If Wolfgang's fall from grace does indeed happen, Damon isn't going to want that to happen to him either. I feel like one part or another of his mind sees a part of himself in Wolfgang, even if he doesn't want to admit it. It's clear Wolfgang also has a similar POV to Damon, even if he expresses it differently. This one line,
"Silence! I won't allow this!"
shows a lot to me. He, even if only in moments of passion, thinks he has or at least desires some form of control, whether or not for good reason. This is most likely because he thinks he is above them in some way, similar to Damon. All these parallels and foils are why I think Wolfgang will influence Damon, much like how Kokichi and Kato influence Shuichi. That point will come up later, when I express my second theory on how Damon will develop. I also find it possible that another reason Wolfgang's fall from grace could affect Damon is because of his highness, but the other way around. It's possible Wolfgang will attempt to get along with Damon, and I don't know how he'll react, but they could even investigate together. If something big happened with Wolfgang, then it could definitely change Damon's view on the killing game and Ultimates as a whole. He might even develop a new sense of responsibility, molding him into somebody more fit for a protagonist. Alright, I'm delving into Eva now, since I'm already treading the line between Wolfgang and dynamics as it is. I'll be covering her relationship with Damon, and then her possible rivalry with Wolfgang. Eva Sunaka, Kokichi, but more like Kurumi type stuff. Did that make sense to you? Probably not. Anyway, I've probably said this before, but Eva is most likely going to be the Toko to Damon's Byakuya. However, it won't be romantic and possibly mutual due to the subversive traits. As mentioned, I've got a reason for believing in the subversion, but I'm still saving that for the climax. It's clear Eva and Damon will have some correlation, even if as they were thrown into the school together, like Nagito and Hajime and Kaede and Shuichi. Therefore, I do see this as a possibility. Damon also backs up Eva post-trial, and they even have the same ideology on that stuff. However, as everyone has said, Eva's talent is a little odd considering its practicality, so that could easily bother Damon if they partner up. There's already the fact Damon isn't afraid to be honest, as he does so when arguing with Eva in the true class trial. Another little note is that the official art for the participants all hanging out in Christmas, Damon is seen as the only person sitting at the table until you see Eva across from him. They're companions at heart, and I enjoy that. Of course, they aren't together in every piece of official art, but, they both have the out-of-place vibe. So, if she's so similar to Damon, yet Damon opposes Wolfgang, in my theory, then theoretically, Eva should as well. Eva's ultimate talent is lying after all, while Wolfgang dedicates his time to finding the truth and serving justice to his clients as the ultimate lawyer, as well as the case as a whole. You see a prime example of this in the True Class trial, where Wolfgang takes the case a step further to figure out the motive of said case. Of course, it doesn't go very far, but his passion for finding the truth and serving justice is extremely obvious. However, we don't know nearly as much about Eva besides her talent. Right now, her whole personality boils down to suspicion it seems, while Wolfgang is trust. I mean, Eva even hid her talent until later. Pure good and pure evil, at least in the eyes of the other classmates. Interesting thing to bring up is Eva's animal symbolism, that being a crow. Crows are scavengers, of course, and typically have a negative stigma surrounding them in fiction, which adds up with the cast's negative interpretation of Eva's talent. The name Eva also means energetic and full of life, which she is a complete subversion of. A lot of subversions with a character. Damon is once again a snake, so similar to Eva's crow, and is the only person who can suspect both Eva and Wolfgang, much like another character related to Danganronpa, Shuichi Saihara. Also, if snakes are known for lying in social media slang, then I feel like Damon being a snake would match with Eva being the ultimate liar. Just a side note though. I'll be vague for now, but I think Damon could be influenced by a conflict between Eva and Wolfgang, though I think it'll be far less dramatic than Kokichi and Kaito. E is on the opposite side of the alphabet to W, and D is next to E. Bit of a stretch, I know. I think Damon will begin on Eva's side and slowly move to the middle, much like how Shuichi begins on Kaito's side and moves to the middle. It would still be a subversion as Damon is starting on the losing side. That is an outline of my second theory. And, well, I want to continue on the animal symbolism train for a little longer. There's some real weird children's story about a snake and a crow. The crow has a partner, and they have kids. The snake one day eats the kid, and the crow goes to a clever fox for help, which results in them baiting the king's guards into coming and killing the snake. The crow lived happily ever after with his wife, and they had new kids. Jed Dawson's animal is a fox, I think, or it could be a wolf or a dog. Damon's is a snake, and Eva's is a crow. I don't know if Jet is going to get involved, but I believe that if Damon and Eva do team up, Eva might perform some form of accidental betrayal, and it could be to what causes Damon to tread on the line between Eva and Wolfgang. Anything could happen from there anyway. I'm going to move to our first theory. It is time for me to present my first main theory, that being the two individual ways I think Wolfgang and Damon will develop from each other. Though, Eva has a more minimal role in this series of hypotheses. I reckon that, as I've said, Damon will slowly fill the role that he was meant to fulfill from the get-go. I reckon the theme will be about his subversion and how the protagonist and antagonist are different to their typical stereotypes, but in the end, they'll fill their roles as shoes. It makes sense when considering Desmond and Eva's animal themes, which are once again Eva's crow theme paired with her talent's assumed rep, alongside Desmond's shark tooth earring representing Shark's false reputation of danger topped with his talent being a hunter, prompting Wolfgang to immediately question him in his introduction. Anyway, why have I been bringing up subversion so frequently throughout this video? Well, look at the description of Eden's Garden. Turning the Danganronpa formula on its head, it seems like subversion is effectively confirmed to be one of the main focuses of the game itself. Therefore, I think the theories I'm presenting are justified. However, in the case of this game, the cast is all very likeable and they all get along with each other, which makes me think that this game will be similar to Trigger Happy Havoc's approach of making every culprit morally grey with an interesting and empathetic motive. Because of this, I think it justifies the other side of the coin, being Wolfgang once again. I've said multiple times he'll switch up, but he won't begin evil or anything. He won't be evil. He'll be like a tragic hero from one of Shakespeare's plays, and Damon will be the true hero, one that begins as an enemy. I think that if they're going to follow this approach, Wolfgang will need to change rather than twist to follow that degree of empathy sprinkled throughout the story. The only outright annoying character is probably Damon, and maybe Eva to an extent, though some people do find Wolfgang annoying, even one of my friends. If the twist does occur like I'm saying, it's going to be tragic. How will this tragedy occur? Well, I've said that Wolfgang's subversion will cause Damon's the responsibility, and I'm sure Damon's pride will come into it as well. Maybe it'll be like a cliched Disney movie, where he takes on the role as a leader for the sake of pride and to prove a point, but by doing so he realizes the importance of human relationships. Of course, this is all going to be because of Wolfgang's absence indirectly. It's somewhat like Shuichi's development, but for all the other reasons. In fact, as I've said, the other theory will be as well, but until then, I want to discuss the other possibility for this theory. Wolfgang is a mediator for a lot of things. I mean, he's literally the ultimate lawyer. It's possible he could partner up with Damon for the Chapter 1 or 2 investigations, as he knows they're both vital assets to trials due to their intelligence. He could also befriend Damon to, as I hinted at earlier, mediate. Or alternatively, he could defend him in the Case 1 True Class trial and become friends with him in Chapter 2 because of it. Similar to Kaito and Shuichi, though, like Nagito and Hajime, Wolfgang's passions could reveal themselves because of Damon's insensitive attitude, causing him to possibly glance over a case or something. Wolfgang's attitude would teach Damon to be more considerate, and Wolfgang would hold a grudge. This conflict would then theoretically lead to another case of alternation of the roles, Wolfgang becoming the antagonist or vice versa. Those are my two theories for this route, but there's another, the thematic pathway. So, the concept of conflict changing Damon's perspective. In Danganronpa v3, for the 100th time, I believe Kaito wasn't the only person that helped Shuichi develop. Regardless of what Kokichi says in the 4th class trial, I think their fighting was the strawberry on top when it comes to the development of character throughout chapters 2 to 5, and I prefer it this way. He says himself the truth is in the eye of the beholder, which, for me, confirms my theory. Though this isn't the theory I'm presenting in this part. What I'm presenting is the possibility of a parallel on Project Eden's Garden. As I've also said before, Eva and Wolfgang will most likely have some form of conflict. It's possible that Wolfgang will attempt to also ally with Eva, but be bristly rejected. As unlike Damon, Eva is far more cold than the character we play as. In her bio, it stated, "It seems like everything you say to her is being ignored." This to me feels like something that could come up later with the introduction of a dynamic between those two, or even her and Damon. I don't know how, but I feel as if impatience will come up, considering it intentionally states Wolfgang dislikes lies. Alternatively, it's likely Eva will accidentally do something, since she seems pretty lackluster in the realm of social skills and cues. I did say she could accidentally betray Damon at some point earlier in the video, and this reason is why I said such a thing. Anyway, why would he be affected by looming conflict between these two opposites? I think that all this has to do with what's being mentioned earlier. He has chemistry with both in terms of teamwork. Not that, but I digress. Damon could get along with either one, possibly even both, causing them to both have more time to interact and brew this conflict till its boiling point. Eva could either betray Damon, or Wolfgang could break down in front of him, and a conflict between the villain and the hero causing a stir in the class would teach Damon how important it is to maintain stability with his peers. I know for a fact Damon would also do this, because in the same scene where he paints himself as the villain, much like any Sasuke profile picture person, it comes from a place of wanting the best for everyone. He just needs to learn how. Damon is going to have a lot of development, and I feel like I can almost guarantee that. Come back to this video when the game is done and see if I was right, because that'll be funny. I might even make a follow-up. Overall though, he wants to help everyone but doesn't know how, from a cinnamon roll fan perspective, much like Shuichi. Why do I keep comparing this guy to Shuichi rather than Hajime? I don't know, but does it matter if I know? No, that's wrong. I'm cutting this section short for now, because there's one more thing I want to cover. The epitome of animal symbolism for both these theories, and seeing if they can come together. It's time to look into these animal things, one last time. I've already brought up the story of the snake and the crows, but there's more to cover. First, I'll talk about it and follow up to the stuff about Wolfgang and Damon's foiling with a piece of info titled The Lamb and the Snake. Let's deep dive into this bundle of possible lore, and while I do so, I'll relate to the Garden of Eden just a little bit, as it has relevance and I'm desperate for proof. We all know the Garden of Eden is inherently Christian, right? Well, this has some relevance to the Bible as well. Sheep have strong immune systems, naturally resisting snake venom, and instead letting it flow into the bloodstream to use its antibodies to fight said venom. It's painful, but allows the sheep to live. This used blood can then be used to treat snake venom in humans, so the sheep is saving people from the snake, right? This sounds a lot like what could be happening with Wolfgang and Damon early in the game. If we follow the A side of Theory 1, which is them not being particularly allies but still having influence on each other, Wolfgang could be painted as the sheep that survives Damon the snake, causing him to help everyone else when it comes to said snake's venom. This makes perfect sense to me, at least far more than the crow and the snake theory. There was also some story about a sheep being bullied and the snakes coming to help him, but that doesn't seem very relevant. Next up, this information is related to Aesop, if I'm pronouncing that right, and is about a crow and a sheep. It follows a crow landing on the back of a sheep, using said sheep to travel with no energy expended on his end. They have a small conversation about how if the sheep were a dog, the crow wouldn't behave like so. He simply agrees, stating he preys on the weak and yields to the strong. Lying can be considered pathetic, much like how most would view this crow at this moment. This pathetic lying is known as pathological lying more frequently, and you most likely know what it is, that being habitual or constant lying, for one reason or another. On the sheep's end, I don't see much relation of Wolfgang, but I do see a conflict, as I said. Between the two animals, this conflict is what I expect from the characters represented by said characters, and now I want to research the wolf side of things. Wolves and snakes represent roughly opposite things, as while wolves can represent bravery, freedom, and leadership, snakes represent, as I've said, death, poison, and more. And crows also represent an opposing thing to wolves, because they're pathetic. Of course, the sheep protects everybody from the snake, but as he breaks down into a wolf later on, that could change to a direct conflict between said wolf and snake. That's all for that, I think, and all for everything, honestly. Overall, as a recap, the game could go in many ways. Damon and Wolfgang face head-on while Eva plays third-party roles, or Eva and Wolfgang fight, helping Damon to develop due to his relations of helping Damon to develop due to his relations to one of, if not both of them. Simple, yes, but I like to justify. Also make a long-ass videos. Okay, cool. We done. I enjoyed this one, and I don't know if you could tell, but I put more research into it than usual. If you're wondering why, well, it's this lovely video named Project Eden's Garden, Ultimate Analysis, or something. Very cool video, and while it didn't give me the idea to make this in the first place, it did help a lot when motivating me to go to the lengths that I did. I made this video and got the idea because of my friend who I won't name, but he really likes Eva, and because of this, I was reminded of my love for the game when I first found it a few months back. Also, if you listen to me ramble on and on about my theories and help me articulate my thoughts a bit to the point where I hopefully won't get more ideas not added into the script within the editing stages. That whole animal section wouldn't have even happened if it weren't for that extra motivation, by the way. Now time for the... wait, it says, screw writing more, just be yourself, babe, with one of those like, colon 3 emoticons, like cat, kind of ooh woo girl type stuff. As I'm writing this, currently, I'll just keep level-headed here. My newest video, which came out probably a week and 2-3 days by this point, as I'm recording this part, because I recorded this after everything else. I don't sound sick or anything, do I? Because I'm not really that sick. It is blowing up. Like, checking the statistics, the analytics, it's been getting, like, almost 1.5k every 2 days, which if you wanted to split that up into daily, it would be like 750, 800, something like that a day, which is really good. Anyway, yeah, I'm hoping this video doesn't flop as well, but you don't really know what's going to happen. Alright, besides that, that's pretty much it. Still waiting for the Miyu Iruma analysis, a frosty Iruma, but hopefully that'll come out soon. Alright, that's the video done. Goodbye guys, I love you all.